Don't cry, little one. I don't know who left you out here, but I'm not leaving you too. Emily Carter's voice nearly vanished beneath the winter wind as she dropped to her knees in the snow. The crying had led her almost half a mile from the narrow road toward her cabin, deep enough into Blackwood Forest that the lights of the settlement had disappeared behind the trees. Snow clung to her dark wool coat and melted against her pale cheeks, but Emily barely noticed the cold anymore. Beneath the broken branches of a pine tree lay a baby wrapped in a black blanket, tiny hands trembling as snow gathered around him. Emily's heart tightened. Oh, sweetheart. She brushed the snow from his hood and lifted him carefully. The moment he settled against her chest, his crying softened. That's it. You're safe. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and destiny, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us, love finds the broken. Now back to Emily. She had spent 23 years learning that an Omega was supposed to know her place. At the winter moon gathering earlier that evening, Vanessa Hale had reminded her of it in front of everyone. Emily had been given the outdoor chores while the stronger wolves celebrated inside the Great Hall, and no one had objected when she was sent home alone through the approaching storm. She was used to being overlooked. What she wasn't used to was finding an abandoned child in weather cold enough to freeze the creek before midnight. Emily pulled the blanket tighter around him. Something silver was embroidered into one corner, a wolf beneath a crescent moon, but the snow was falling too hard for her to study it. Where is your family? She whispered. The baby's eyes opened. They were an unusual gray, bright and watchful despite his exhaustion. He stared at Emily as though he recognized her. Have we met? She murmured with a nervous smile. The baby reached upward. Emily expected him to grab her collar. Instead, his tiny fingers closed around her bare wrist. Heat flashed beneath her skin. Emily gasped. It wasn't painful, but it was impossible, warmth, spreading through her arm while the air around them remained bitterly cold. A faint silver glow appeared beneath the baby's fingers. What is that? Emily whispered. The light grew brighter. Thin lines curled across her wrist, joining into the shape of a crowned wolf surrounded by a crescent moon. Emily stared at the mark. She had never seen it before, yet something deep inside her Omega instincts suddenly went silent. Listening. Waiting. The baby stopped crying. Then, somewhere beyond the snow-covered trees, a wolf howled. Another answered from the opposite ridge. Emily slowly raised her head. More howls followed, drawing closer from every direction. The child tightened his fingers around her wrist, and the mysterious mark began to glow again. The first shape appeared between the trees less than 50 feet away, and Emily instinctively pulled the baby closer. A second figure emerged through the blowing snow, then another, until 6 men in dark winter uniforms surrounded the clearing without coming any closer. Silver wolf emblems gleamed on their coats. Royal Guards. Emily's relief lasted only a heartbeat. Every guard was staring at the child in her arms. Nobody move, the man at their center ordered. He was broad-shouldered, perhaps 40, with frost collecting along the collar of his black coat. His gaze moved from Emily to the baby's blanket, and all the color seemed to leave his face. Prince Noah. Emily looked down. Prince. The captain stepped forward carefully. My name is Marcus Reed, captain of the Royal Guard. Put the child down and step away. Emily stared at him. He was alone in the snow. Step away from him. He is freezing. Marcus stopped. Something changed in his expression, but the guards behind him remained tense. Emily could hear her own heartbeat beneath the wind. I found him beneath that tree, she said. There were no tracks I could see. I heard him crying from the road. One guard exchanged a suspicious glance with another. Convenient, a voice said behind them. Emily knew that voice. Vanessa Hale emerged from the trees beneath a white fur-lined cloak, accompanied by 2 members of her household. Her eyes settled on Emily, then narrowed. An Omega disappears from the gathering, and the missing royal child somehow appears in her arms. I did not take him. Vanessa gave a quiet, humorless laugh. Then give him back. Emily looked at Noah. His eyes were open again, watching the strangers around them. Of course. She loosened her hold so Marcus could take him. The instant his hands approached, Noah whimpered and buried his face against Emily's coat. Easy, Marcus murmured. He tried again. Noah's tiny fingers suddenly locked around Emily's wrist. The silver mark flared beneath her skin. Every guard froze. Marcus stared at it. Where did you get that? I do not know. Emily's voice shook. It appeared when he touched me. Vanessa stepped closer. That is impossible. Marcus's expression hardened. Cover it. Why? Now, Miss Carter. Emily pulled her sleeve over the glowing symbol, but she had already seen something she could not explain. The guards were no longer looking at her as merely suspicious. They looked unsettled, almost afraid. Marcus lowered his voice. We are returning to Blackwood Citadel. You are coming with us. Vanessa smiled faintly. I suppose the king will decide what happens to her. Emily ignored her. What about Noah? Marcus glanced at the child still clinging to Emily. Apparently, he is coming with you. The journey through the storm felt endless. Less than an hour later, enormous iron gates appeared through the snow, opening onto a fortress blazing with warm golden windows. Emily had never been inside Blackwood Citadel. She had certainly never imagined entering it while carrying its missing heir. The great doors opened before them. Dozens of people waited inside. Conversation died the moment Emily crossed the threshold. Then footsteps sounded from the far end of the hall. Slow, heavy, certain. Everyone around her lowered their heads. A tall man dressed entirely in black descended the stone staircase, his silver-gray eyes fixed first on Noah. Relief crossed his face so quickly Emily almost missed it. Then Noah reached for Emily's wrist again. Silver light escaped beneath her sleeve. The Alpha King stopped walking. For one long second, nobody in the great hall seemed willing to breathe. King Adrian Blackwood stood at the foot of the staircase, his attention fixed on the silver light escaping beneath Emily's sleeve. Emily had expected the Alpha King to look frightening. Instead, what unsettled her was his control. He did not shout. He did not demand answers. He simply crossed the hall with measured steps while every person around him remained perfectly still. When he reached Emily, his gaze immediately shifted to Noah. Son. The single word carried more emotion than Emily expected from the ruler people called the Winter King. Noah lifted his head from her shoulder. His small face brightened. Papa. Adrian closed his eyes for half a heartbeat, as though hearing that voice had returned something precious to him. He reached for his son, and this time Noah allowed himself to be gathered into his father's arms. Emily finally released the breath she had been holding. He was very cold when I found him, she said softly. Adrian studied Noah's face, his hands, the blanket around him. Only after assuring himself that the child was safe did he look at Emily. You found him, near the northern road, about half a mile from my cabin. Marcus stepped forward. Your Majesty, we discovered Miss Carter holding Prince Noah beneath the pines. She claims she followed his crying into the forest. Vanessa's voice came smoothly from behind them, claims being the important word. Adrian did not look at her. Captain Reed, did you find evidence that Miss Carter brought Noah there? Marcus hesitated. No, Your Majesty. Then she is not accused of anything. Vanessa fell silent. Emily should have felt relieved. Instead, Noah reached from Adrian's arms and caught her sleeve. The fabric slipped back. Silver light spread across her wrist. Adrian's expression changed instantly. He caught Emily's hand, not roughly, but with unmistakable urgency, and covered the mark with his palm. His skin was warm against hers. Who else saw this? He asked. Marcus answered quietly. The search party. Lady Hale. Her attendants. Adrian turned toward the hall. No one speaks of what they saw tonight. The command was calm, yet every head lowered. Emily looked. From Adrian to her hidden wrist. I think I deserve to know what everyone is afraid of. His eyes returned to hers. For the first time, she saw something beneath the king's composure. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Where did you get that mark? I told Captain Reed. Noah touched me, and it appeared. Adrian searched her face as though expecting to find deception there. That cannot happen. I watched it happen, Emily replied. Noah suddenly reached toward her again. Adrian looked down at his son. Noah, do you know her? The little boy nodded. Emily's heart stumbled. He cannot. We have never met. Noah stretched both arms toward her and whispered, Emmy. The room seemed to shrink around that tiny word. Emily stared at him. She had never told the child her name. Adrian had gone completely still. Clear the hall, he ordered. Within moments, nobles and servants began leaving. Vanessa lingered until Marcus firmly directed her toward the doors. Adrian waited until they closed. Then he looked at Emily's wrist again. There are things about my family that have not been spoken aloud for generations. Emily swallowed. Does that mark belong to your family? Adrian's gaze sharpened. Yes. Then tell me what it means. He was silent for several seconds. Not yet. Emily pulled her hand gently from his. Then I am going home. She had taken only one step when Noah began reaching desperately toward her. The mark beneath Emily's sleeve warmed again. Adrian noticed. His eyes moved from his son to Emily, and something in his expression darkened with realization. You cannot leave tonight, he said. Why? Adrian looked toward the closed doors as if suddenly uncertain who inside his own citadel could be trusted. Because my son did not wander into that forest, Miss Carter. His voice dropped. Someone put him there. Emily forgot about leaving. Someone left Noah in the forest? Adrian glanced toward his son before answering. His carriage was supposed to travel from the Western Lodge to the Citadel before sunset. It never arrived. Marcus stepped closer. We found the carriage abandoned 3 miles west of where Miss Carter discovered the prince. The trail leading away from it was confused by the storm. Emily looked at Noah. The little boy had settled against his father's shoulder, but his gray eyes remained fixed on her. Then whoever did this could still be nearby. That is why you are staying inside these walls tonight, Adrian said. Emily almost objected to the command in his voice, but exhaustion had begun settling into her bones. Her coat was still damp from melted snow, her fingers were numb, and the strange mark beneath her sleeve felt warmer with every passing minute. Adrian noticed her shivering. Marcus, prepare the east guest room. Your Majesty? The room beside Noah's. Emily blinked. That is not necessary. Noah immediately whispered, Emmy. Adrian looked at his son, then back at her. I suspect he disagrees. Less than an hour later, Emily sat beside Noah's bed in a quiet room warmed by a stone fireplace. A healer had examined him and declared that he needed warmth, rest, and something gentle to eat. Yet Noah had refused everything until Emily sat beside him. Only then had he accepted a few spoonfuls of warm oatmeal and allowed the blankets to be tucked around him. Emily brushed a curl from his forehead. You caused quite a commotion tonight, little man. Noah gave her a sleepy smile. Snow? Yes. Far too much snow. Emmy came. The words caught her unexpectedly. I did. His fingers found her wrist again, resting directly over the hidden mark. This time there was no flash of light, only a quiet warmth that spread through her hand. Noah's breathing slowly became even. Emily remained beside him until she was certain he was asleep. When she finally looked toward the doorway, Adrian was standing there. She had not heard him arrive. Without the entire court surrounding him, he seemed different. Still imposing, but quieter. More like a worried father than a king. How long have you been there? She asked. Long enough to see my son sleep peacefully for the first time tonight. Emily lowered her voice. He must have been terrified. Adrian's jaw tightened. He should never have been outside the citadel without people I trusted. You trusted the people in that carriage. His eyes met hers. Yes. Emily understood the part he did not say. That was what frightened him. Adrian entered the room and stopped beside Noah's bed. He usually disliked strangers. Maybe he was too tired to remember that rule. Noah remembers everything. Adrian looked at her wrist. Including people. Emily followed his gaze. You still have not told me what this means. Because I do not know why it appeared. That is different from not knowing what it is. Silence stretched between them. Adrian seemed almost impressed by her refusal to retreat. Then Noah shifted in his sleep and murmured something neither of them understood. Emily instinctively adjusted his blanket. Adrian watched the small gesture. Something in his expression softened. You did not know who he was when you found him, he said. No. Yet you walked into a storm for him. Emily frowned. He was a child crying alone. His name would not have changed anything. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Before he could answer, Emily caught a faint scent drifting from Noah's blanket. Sweet. Herbal. Familiar. Her hand stopped. She had smelled it earlier that evening inside the great hall. Emily slowly turned toward Adrian. Your Majesty, who prepared Noah for his trip today? Adrian did not answer immediately. His attention shifted to the black blanket beneath Noah's hand. The Western Lodge staff prepared him for the trip, but his personal things came from here. Emily leaned closer without disturbing the sleeping child. The scent was faint now, almost hidden beneath cedar smoke and winter air. There is something on this blanket. Adrian's expression sharpened. What kind of something? I do not know. It smells like sweet herbs and pine resin. Emily hesitated. But I smelled the same thing tonight at the winter moon gathering. Within minutes, Marcus stood in the room with a royal healer named Dr. Helen Moore, a silver-haired woman whose calm presence seemed to settle the air around her. She examined the blanket carefully, then lifted her eyes. Winter valerian, she said, mixed with lavender oil. Harmless in small amounts. It is sometimes used to help children sleep during long carriage rides. Adrian's voice became quiet. Noah was not supposed to be given anything tonight. Dr. Moore folded the blanket away from the child. Then someone wanted him unusually sleepy. Emily felt cold despite the fire. The abandoned carriage. The storm. Noah alone beneath a tree. These things no longer felt like separate accidents. Marcus seemed to reach the same conclusion. I will question everyone who had access to the prince's belongings. Quietly, Adrian said. Whoever arranged this may believe the storm erased the evidence. Marcus nodded and left. Emily looked down at Noah. Someone knew exactly where he would be. Adrian's gaze hardened. And exactly when. A soft knock interrupted them. A young attendant entered carrying a silver tray. Warm milk for Prince Noah, Your Majesty. Emily recognized the fragrance before the cup reached the bedside table. Sweet herbs. Pine resin. Her pulse jumped. Wait. Everyone turned toward her. The attendant froze. Emily stepped closer to the tray and inhaled carefully. The same scent. Stronger this time. Adrian immediately moved between the tray and Noah. Who prepared this? The attendant looked confused. It was waiting in the royal kitchen, Your Majesty. I was told the prince always receives warm milk after a difficult evening. By whom? I do not know. The note had the royal household seal. Adrian's eyes met Dr. Moore's. She took the cup for examination while the attendant was calmly escorted outside to answer questions. Emily stared at the closed door. They know Noah is back. Adrian nodded once. Which means whoever planned his disappearance may still be inside the citadel. Noah stirred. His eyes opened, unfocused with sleep, and his hand reached toward Emily. She sat beside him immediately. I am here. He relaxed at the sound of her voice. Adrian watched them, his expression unreadable. Then the silver mark beneath Emily's sleeve suddenly warmed. Not gently this time. Emily pulled back the fabric. The crowned wolf shimmered against her pale wrist. It is happening again. Adrian stepped closer. The light brightened when Noah touched her hand, then faded when he released it. Dr. Moore stared in disbelief. That mark is responding to the prince. Adrian looked troubled rather than surprised. Emily caught it. You expected that. I hoped I was wrong. About what? Adrian glanced toward Noah before lowering his voice. There is an elder who knows more about the old royal bonds than anyone alive. His name is Thomas Gray. He lives 12 miles north of the citadel. Then bring him here. Adrian looked toward the windows, where snow still swept across the darkness. At first light, Emily looked at the mysterious symbol on her wrist. Before she could speak, Marcus returned, holding a small folded note. Your Majesty, we found this inside the prince's travel chest. Adrian opened it. His face changed. What does it say? Emily asked. Adrian slowly raised his eyes. It says the Omega was never supposed to find him. Emily stared at the note in Adrian's hand. The Omega? Marcus stepped closer. There is no name. Adrian read the message again, his expression controlled, but Emily noticed how carefully he folded the paper afterward. Whoever wrote this knew Noah would be taken into the forest, he said, and they expected an Omega to be involved. Emily looked toward the sleeping child. Then maybe finding him was not an accident. Or someone else was supposed to find him, Marcus replied. The thought settled heavily over the room. Before anyone could say more, a quiet sound came from the hallway. Noah woke immediately. His small hand reached for Emily. Emmy. She moved beside him, but Adrian suddenly turned toward the door. Marcus. The captain opened it. The corridor appeared empty. Then Emily smelled it again. Sweet herbs and pine resin. Stronger than before. It is here. Adrian looked at her. Where? Emily followed the scent toward a small table outside Noah's room. A fresh bundle of winter flowers had been placed there. Tucked among the white blossoms were dark green leaves carrying the familiar fragrance. Dr. Moore approached and examined them. Winter valerian. Adrian's face went still. Remove them. Marcus lifted the arrangement away while Emily returned to Noah. The boy was fully awake now, frightened by the sudden movement around him. It is all right, she whispered. You are safe. A shadow moved beyond the far archway. Someone turned and hurried out of sight. Marcus started after the figure, but Adrian raised a hand. Stay with Noah. Emily felt the mark on her wrist grow warm. Noah gripped her fingers. Then a strange silver glow spread beneath her sleeve. Adrian. It was the first time she had used his name. He looked at her immediately. The mark brightened, and the air around Emily seemed to change. Not violently. It felt like standing beneath warm sunlight after hours in winter. Noah's frightened breathing slowed. A soft silver shimmer formed around them, faint but unmistakable. Adrian stepped closer, his eyes widening. Emily, do not move. I am not doing anything. I know. The glow expanded for a moment, surrounding Noah like a quiet veil, then faded into Emily's wrist. Dr. Moore whispered, that was protection magic. Emily stared at her hand. I do not have magic. A new voice answered from the doorway. Perhaps you did not until he chose you. An elderly man stood there, snow dusting the shoulders of his long gray coat. Marcus straightened. Elder Thomas. Adrian looked surprised. You were not expected until morning. Thomas Gray entered slowly. When a royal messenger arrived saying the lost prince had returned and an ancient mark had awakened, I decided 12 miles of snow was not enough to keep me home. His eyes found Emily's wrist. For the first time that night, someone looked at the symbol without fear. He looked almost relieved. May I see it? Emily extended her hand. Thomas studied the crowned wolf carefully. People have misunderstood this mark for centuries, he said. It is not a brand of ownership. No king can command it to appear. Adrian's gaze remained fixed on Emily. Then what is it? Thomas looked from Noah to Emily, then finally to Adrian. The old records called it the guardian mate mark. Royal blood recognizes the heart that will protect the family before power, rank, or even the king himself can understand the choice. Emily's breath caught. You are saying Noah caused this? No, Thomas said gently. I am saying the bond answered him. Adrian went completely still. Thomas touched one finger near the silver symbol without touching Emily's skin. And once awakened, it does not protect only the child. The mark suddenly flashed again as Adrian stepped nearer. Thomas lifted his eyes to the king. It has begun recognizing you too. Emily pulled her sleeve over the mark as if fabric could make Elder Thomas's words disappear. Recognizing him means what exactly? Thomas studied her with patient gray eyes. It means the bond is unfolding. Nothing more should be assumed until we understand why it awakened now. Adrian seemed ready to question him further when Marcus returned. Your Majesty, we identified the person who placed the flowers outside Prince Noah's room. The room went silent. Who? Adrian asked. Marcus hesitated. A servant from the Hale household. Emily felt the pieces begin to connect. Vanessa had been in the forest. Vanessa had known exactly when Emily disappeared from the gathering. And Vanessa had seemed more interested in accusing Emily than asking whether Noah was safe. Adrian's expression revealed nothing. Bring Lady Hale to the council chamber. Quietly. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes later dressed in an elegant white winter gown, her posture composed despite the late hour. Her father, Councilman Richard Hale, entered beside her. This is outrageous, Richard said. My daughter came here to assist with the search. Vanessa's eyes settled on Emily. And now an Omega is making accusations against my family? I have made no accusation, Emily replied. Not yet. Vanessa gave a thin smile. You expect us to believe that Mark suddenly appeared because a child touched you? Emily could feel every noble in the chamber watching her. The old instinct returned, the one that told her to lower her eyes and make herself smaller. She refused it. I expect you to explain why your servant placed Winter Valerian outside Noah's room. Vanessa's confidence flickered. Flowers. Marcus placed the arrangement on the council table. Your household seal was attached to the delivery order. Richard Hale frowned. Seals can be copied. Yes, Emily said quietly. So can notes. She looked toward Adrian. But scents are harder to. Hi. Adrian understood immediately. The gathering. Emily nodded. Vanessa wore the same fragrance tonight. Lavender, pine resin, and winter valerian. Vanessa laughed. Half the women in Blackwood use lavender. Not that mixture, Dr. Moore said from beside Thomas. It is prepared by only 2 herbalists in the territory. Marcus placed another document on the table. One of them confirmed a large order was purchased 3 days ago by the Hale household. Richard's face tightened. Vanessa looked toward her father. That single glance told Emily more than any denial. Marcus continued. We also found records showing Councilman Hale changed Prince Noah's travel schedule this afternoon. He moved the departure from morning to sunset. Adrian's voice became dangerously quiet. Without my authorization. Richard stepped forward. It was a security precaution. A security precaution that placed my son on an isolated road during a storm? Richard had no answer. Emily suddenly remembered something else. The note said the Omega was never supposed to find him. Everyone turned toward her. Maybe it did not mean me specifically, she continued. Maybe whoever planned this knew the northern road passed near Omega housing. They expected the storm to keep everyone inside. Thomas nodded slowly. Except compassion cannot be scheduled. Vanessa's composure finally cracked. This is absurd. She is nobody. An unclaimed Omega with no family, no rank, nothing. You cannot possibly believe royal blood chose her. Emily felt the insult land, but it no longer had the power it once carried. She met Vanessa's eyes. Noah did not know my rank when he was crying in the snow. Silence followed. Adrian looked at Emily, and something unmistakable passed through his expression. Pride. Marcus approached the king with one final paper. There is more, Your Majesty. Councilman Hale filed a succession petition 6 months ago. If Prince Noah were declared lost without an heir, the council could pressure you to choose a new Luna from an eligible alpha family. Adrian slowly turned toward Vanessa. Her face had gone pale. Marcus finished quietly. The first name on that petition was Vanessa. Hale. Vanessa stared at the succession petition as though the paper had betrayed her. Around the council chamber, the nobles who had arrived expecting an explanation now watched her in complete silence. Richard Hale recovered first. A petition is not a confession. Several families discussed succession after years without a Luna. That was politics, nothing more. Adrian remained beside the council table. Politics does not explain why you changed my son's travel schedule. Richard opened his mouth, but Marcus placed a second document beside the first. The order carries Councilman Hale's private authorization code. The Western Lodge confirmed it was delivered by his secretary this afternoon. Vanessa turned toward her father. Tell them. Richard said nothing. That silence changed everything. Adrian ordered Marcus to place the Hales under guarded residence while the council completed a formal investigation. No spectacle. No punishment declared in anger. Just a quiet command that stripped away every excuse they had brought into the room. Vanessa looked past the guards toward Emily. You think this makes you important? Emily felt dozens of eyes turn toward her. Once, those words would have made her disappear into herself. Tonight, she thought of Noah beneath the pine tree, too cold and frightened to care whether the person who found him was Alpha, Beta, or Omega. No, Emily said. Helping a frightened child did not make me important. It made me responsible for what was in front of me. Vanessa's expression tightened. You are still an Omega. Yes. Emily held her gaze. I never said otherwise. Adrian's eyes remained on Emily as Vanessa and her father were escorted from the chamber. Then another councilman rose. Your Majesty, whatever the Hales may have done, there remains the matter of the mark. Royal tradition cannot be rewritten because an unknown Omega happened to be present. Murmurs spread through the room. Elder Thomas stepped forward. Nothing has been rewritten. You have simply forgotten what was written first. He opened an old leather-bound record he had brought from his home. The Guardian Mate mark predates the modern council. It recognizes protection freely given, never status demanded. The councilman frowned. Even so, surely the king must decide whether to accept such a bond. He must, Thomas replied. And so must she. Emily looked at him. I have a choice. Always. The answer came from Adrian. He stepped away from the council table and approached her. The room grew still. Emily expected another royal declaration. Instead, Adrian stopped several feet away. Then the Alpha King lowered himself to one knee. A collective breath moved through the chamber. Emily could only stare. Adrian Blackwood, the man before whom entire packs bowed, was looking up at an Omega who had spent most of her life being told to keep her eyes lowered. Stand up, she whispered, overwhelmed. Not until I say this correctly. His voice was calm. My son trusted you before anyone told you his name. You protected him before you knew what his life was worth to this kingdom. And tonight, when people questioned your place, you did not ask me to give you one. He extended his hand, palm upward. The mark may have chosen before either of us understood it. But I will not use destiny as an order. Emily's wrist began to warm. Adrian continued. If you remain here, Emily Carter, it will be because you choose to. If you leave tomorrow, you leave with my gratitude and my protection. The decision is yours. Across the chamber, Marcus lowered his head. Then Dr. Moore did the same. Elder Thomas followed. One by one, the council members fell silent and bowed, not because Adrian commanded them, but because the meaning of his gesture had become impossible to ignore. Emily looked at his waiting hand. She thought of the lonely cabin beyond the northern road. She thought of Noah calling her name. Slowly, she placed her hand in Adrian's. Silver light unfolded across her wrist, brighter than before. The crowned wolf shimmered, and a second crescent appeared beside it. Elder Thomas drew a quiet breath. The mark is complete. Then a small voice came from the doorway. Emmy. Noah stood there holding his blanket, smiling sleepily at them both. Noah crossed the council chamber in small, sleepy steps, dragging his black blanket behind him. Emily released Adrian's hand just in time to kneel as the little boy reached her. Noah wrapped his arms around her neck without hesitation. You should be asleep, Emily whispered. Emmy, stay. The question was so simple that it silenced every complicated thought in her mind. She looked at Adrian. He had risen to his feet, but there was no command in his expression now. Only patience. Yes, Emily told Noah softly. I will stay. For weeks later, winter still covered Blackwood territory in white, but the citadel no longer felt cold to her. The investigation had confirmed that Richard Hale had arranged Noah's altered travel schedule in hopes that the prince's disappearance would create a succession crisis. Vanessa had known enough to remain silent and support the plan. Both were removed from the royal council and sent away from the citadel under lawful supervision, while everyone else involved faced formal review. Adrian had refused to let anger decide their fate. A kingdom cannot call itself just if its king ignores the law when he is hurt, he had told Emily. She remembered those words. She remembered many things about him now. The way he checked Noah's room every night, even when servants insisted the boy was sleeping. The way he listened before giving an order. The way he never once treated the silver mark as permission to decide Emily's future. She had been offered rooms in the royal wing, but she chose a smaller suite overlooking the northern forest. She still helped in the infirmary twice a week. She still preferred simple dresses to ceremonial gowns. And when members of the court called her Lady Emily, she still occasionally looked behind herself before remembering they meant her. One quiet afternoon, fresh snow began falling over the gardens. Noah ran ahead in a blue winter coat, laughing as his boots disappeared into nearly 6 inches of powder. Not past the oak tree, Adrian called. I know, Papa. Noah shouted without slowing down. Emily smiled. He inherited your respect for instructions. Adrian gave her a sideways look. I was hoping that came from you. They followed Noah along the path. Emily stopped beneath a pine tree and held out her hand. Snowflakes melted against her palm. The silver mark on her wrist was no longer frightening. Elder Thomas had explained that completing the mark did not make her queen, Luna, or anything else she had not freely chosen to become. It represented a bond, not a crown. Everything beyond that would be decided in time. Together, Adrian stopped beside her. Cold? Not really. She looked toward the distant northern road. Somewhere beyond those trees stood the cabin where she had once believed her life would remain small and unnoticed forever. I was thinking about that night. Adrian followed her gaze. So was I. Noah came racing back, cheeks pink from the cold. He grabbed Emily's hand with one mitten and Adrian's with the other. Come on. Emily laughed as he tried to pull them forward. Where are we going? Noah pointed toward an untouched stretch of snow. There. That explains everything, Adrian said solemnly. Noah giggled. They walked on together, leaving 3 sets of footprints across the white garden. Emily looked down at the little hand holding hers. She had entered the storm believing that people like her were meant to remain at the edges, useful perhaps, but never chosen. Yet the moment that changed her life had required no rank, no ceremony, and no audience. There had only been a child crying in the cold and a choice to stop. Noah looked up at her and smiled. Emily squeezed his hand gently. She had gone into the snow thinking no one would ever choose an Omega like her. She had come out carrying the child who chose her first,